Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I think now we could begin. On January 15th, in the quiet evening here in Sheepshead Bay, our community was shattered with a vicious attack in this restaurant right behind us. As three local residents, three upstanding, hardworking family men were brutally assaulted. Over the last 2 weeks, all three have sadly lost their lives because of the injuries they sustained during the attack. Our community has been shaken to its core. Today is a very difficult day, a solemn day, but it is also a proud day. I am proud to see so many people who have come out on this cold Friday morning to declare that an attack on one is an attack on all. If someone comes after one of us, they're coming after all of us. We have assembled here today in unity and in brotherhood with the Asian American community in Sheepshead Bay and throughout New York City. We aren't here to scream or shout about the senselessness of it all. We're here to be supportive of our neighbors, to send a clear message of solidarity, and to show that we here in New York City are one city for all. The perpetrator allegedly expressed vicious anti-Asian sentiments as he committed the attack, leaving little doubt that his motivations were rooted in baseless hatred. The families of the victim and our community are still reeling from this brutal attack, but we are also standing together as one, declaring that this incident does not represent who we are as New Yorkers. New Yorkers care for each other, we respect each other, and we support each other during difficult times. Look around you and see all the different faces here today. This is what we are all about, uniting in our humanity. In a time when it's so easy to dwell on things that make us different, on the things that divide us, who we are standing here today and proving that what we share is all mostly we have in common. Hate has no place in Sheepshead Bay, and hate has no place in our city. We'll hear today from representatives from the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office, Eric Gonzalez, shortly. And I just want to say that I have been in touch with the District Attorney since January 15th, and he's been very accessible, and he's asking the grand jury that this should definitely be deemed a hate crime. And it's very important that when incidents such as this and others happen throughout the community, that we need to be vocal about it and let the communities and let the press know of what is going on and what's transpiring throughout an investigation of what could be said. Hate crimes across the city and across the world in recent years have increased. Here in New York City in particular, hate crimes in 2018 have had a 5% increase. And we as elected officials, it's very easy to come out to unity rallies and to stand at press conferences and shout and scream. But we need to take action. Just yesterday, my colleagues and I passed 2 bills in the City Council that will open a new mayoral hate crimes prevention that will require education outreach throughout our city, throughout our school system, on the consequences of bias, of hatred, and of prejudice. When I drafted my bill, I had no idea that within a few months I would be standing here on a quiet street on Emmons Avenue and denouncing this brutal murder of 3 people who are our neighbors, our friends, our fellow New Yorkers. We have a saying in the Jewish religion that sometimes God sends the cure before he sends the plague. Well, the plague is here, and the plague is hatred. But we are equipped with the tools that we need to fight back, and to fight back with love, respect, tolerance, and unity. And I'm really grateful to be here with everyone here to show the support for our fellow human being, our fellow New Yorker, our fellow brother. And I want to thank my colleagues, in particular Councilmember Margaret Chin, who's been a very vocal and outspoken person in the City Council, as well as Councilmember Peter Koo, who is here today, and they are strong leaders on behalf of the Asian American community here in New York City. So before I call up my colleagues, I just want to send my deepest condolences to the families, because life cannot be replaced. I came back to the restaurant a number of times, and yesterday was the first day, yesterday afternoon, when the restaurant opened up for its first time since the 3 tragic incidents. And I was happy when I walked in, seeing that there was a table surrounded by 20 family members celebrating a birthday of a child and singing happy birthday. And walking in there and thinking back what just happened here a few weeks before, it gave me shivers down my spine, but it gave me joy just to see that people are coming back and people are united, and New Yorkers are not afraid. We stand up when we need to. And hate, bigotry, bias has no place, especially if just a few blocks down we have the Holocaust Memorial, where we, January 27, just this coming Sunday, is International Holocaust Remembrance Day, where we remember atrocities that happened to millions of people. Today, we stand here for something that happened to 3 individuals here in Sheepshead Bay, here in New York City. And looking around and you see people representing every corner of New York City, this is the make of what our city is all about. So without further ado, I'd like to call up my colleague, Councilmember Margaret Chin, to say a few words.
Thank you, Councilmember Deutsch, for your leadership on this. You know, a little more than a week ago, an individual cowardly and viciously attacked 3 innocent New Yorkers for no other reason than the fact that they were Asian. Tragically, over the course of 9 days, all 3 of these Asian men lost their lives. The murderer claimed to be inspired by a film depicting Asian men abusing Asian women. He entered the restaurant motivated by a pernicious racial stereotype of gender relation in my community with a goal to massacre Asian. Believing himself to be sort of a savior, the attacker bludgeoned these restaurant workers while they were doing their job. Let's be clear, this was a racial hate crime, plain and simple. For that reason, I called upon our District Attorney, Eric Gonzalez, to stand with our community and prosecute these murders as a hate crime. This will ensure the coward who took their lives will answer for the ugliness of this crime. You know, as we mourn the 3 lives we lost, Mr. Pan Zhimu, Pan Fufeng, and Wu Queqiang, we also must celebrate the lives they led and the people they touched. You see the diverse crowd here gathered today. This is a rebuke to the ugly views espoused by the attacker. We stand united today in solidarity with a community grieving. And I wanted to thank the families of the victim, and our hearts and prayers go out to them. Councilmember Deutsch, I thank you so much for hosting this rally and bringing all of us together, and also my colleague, Councilmember Koo, for coming here with Councilmember Traeger in solidarity, and all the elected official and the community leader. We are sending a strong message that New York will never tolerate such such an egregious and targeted attack upon any of the communities that make up our great city. Hate has no place in New York City. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Chin. Councilmember Koo?
Thank you, Councilman Deutsch, for organizing this really important event to express our sorrow and our condolences to the families of the victims. I'm Councilman Koo. I represent Council District 20, Flushing, Queens, which has the highest concentration of Asian Americans in the city, in my district. We're here to say sorrow and pay respect to the victims and their families. I also want to say I'm representing Flushing, so my community, the whole community is very sorry about this sad incident, this thing happened. So we must always stand together to denounce hatred and ignorance whenever we are singled out and targeted by racism and violence. We have gathered here today in solidarity with the families, friends, and community of those who live here were so wrongly taken. We want the families to know that we will use their sacrifice to fuel our determination as New Yorkers who live by the law and their strength and power in diversity. This was an act of evil carried out by a lost and deranged individual who had been somehow overwhelmingly influenced by ideals of cynicism, hatred, and negativity. As a city of immigrants, we stand together in unity of this act of hatred, and we offer our love and support to the family and the loved ones of those lost. So we want to say especially, we're very sorry to the families, to the family Pan Ji-woo, that he died at 50 years old, and Pan Fu-fei, he's much younger age, and the owner, Wu Tan, died of brain death on that day. So we hope we can use this tragedy to prevent further tragedies. I want to thank Councilman Deutsch and all my colleagues, and especially Councilman Chin and Councilman Traeger here, and all my colleagues in government, and all the community leaders here to come and show support. Thank you very much. Yeah.
I just want to say how supportive my two colleagues, Margaret Chin and Peter Koo, have been over the last few weeks after this incident occurred. You know, when incidents such as this and others happens throughout the city, and we see it in the news for one day, we tend to forget. So I want to thank the press for being here today, for being here, sending our message out, our message of unity. When someone attacks one New Yorker, they're attacking all New Yorkers. When someone targets one individual, they're targeting all of us. And when someone messes with one, they are messing with all. And we will not stand for it. We will continue raising our voices and taking action in the City Council. I would like to call up now my colleague, Councilmember Mark Traeger.
Thank you so much to Councilmember Deutsch and his office for their leadership, and to all my colleagues in government and leaders from all across, I see, New York City and Brooklyn here. We are at the scene of a hate crime massacre. Make no mistake, a hate crime massacre. We're hardworking people in our community, hardworking immigrants who put their blood, sweat, and tears into making this small business in this neighborhood a great place to live and to shop were butchered, massacred and butchered because of hate. And I'll also share with you that many immigrants also frequent this location and shop and dine here. I am the first Russian-speaking member of the New York City Council. This is a popular spot for the Russian-speaking community and for all communities. And we're all feeling this pain. As my colleague noted, an attack on one is an attack against us all. And today we're on Emmons Avenue, where this vicious hate massacre occurred. Last year, we were on 86th Street in my district in Bensonhurst, where there was vile anti-Asian American graffiti spray painted across a number of storefronts. There is something deeply wrong here. And there is a connection between the vile, disgusting rhetoric that we hear from leaders in our country that I believe trigger and have a role in the increase in hate crimes we're seeing across New York City and across America and across the world. So yes, we definitely call upon our district attorney to prosecute to the fullest extent of the law as a hate crime, as a murder, but also send a message to folks in government and leaders to be responsible with your words and your actions. It doesn't take much to trigger such horrendous, heinous crimes that we're seeing committed against our people. We will continue to stand in solidarity with all communities impacted by hate, but we also must hold ourselves accountable, our words, our language, and our actions, that we love and respect all. If we're truly united, then those words must be turned into action, in applied practice, and not just a slogan. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, when a police officer leaves his or her home, their spouse tends to tell them, be safe, stay safe. When a firefighter goes to work, you tend to tell them, stay safe. But when someone goes to work to provide for the families at a local business, you don't tell that person to stay safe and be safe. No one should have to go to work, whether you're a first responder or a restaurant worker or a chef or a manager in a local business. This shouldn't happen here in New York City or anywhere in the world. This needs to stop. This needs to stop. I'd like to ask State Senator Andrew Granados to say a few words.
Thank you, Councilman. Doesn't work? Okay. From behind, you can't really see. Thank you, Councilmember. I stand here today in unity with my colleagues and our community leaders, in mourning with the families of the 3 victims, in mourning with the community of Sheepshead Bay, in mourning with the Asian American community here in New York City, and in mourning with humanity at large. We are living in a time of deep fear, of deep hatred, of divisions, of conversations of otherness, of others, of those people, and this has to stop. And it's incumbent upon all of us, elected leaders, community leaders, human beings from one to another, to make it stop. And we need to rise up with one voice united and say no to bigotry, no to racism, no to discrimination, and no to hate. As the grandson of Greek immigrants, great-grandson of Greek immigrants, we have a word that I was raised with. It's called philoxenia, love of strangers, an obligation to our fellow human beings to treat them with fairness and dignity and respect and compassion just because they are our neighbors. They're fellow human beings. We need more philoxenia in the world, and hopefully things like this, tragedies like this, massacres like this, can be prevented in the future. So we stand in solidarity with this community. We stand in unity as one voice united, and hopefully we'll aspire and we hope for a better world and a better life for all, where days like today aren't necessary anymore. Thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you. Assemblymember Helene Weinstein.
I'm honored to be here today with colleagues in government and so much of my community and community of Brooklyn to denounce what happened here. And the councilman talked about the need for more education, which is something we have to do. I want to read the words to a song written in 1949 from South Pacific, and it really points out the need for education. It's called You've Got to Be Carefully Taught. And they stand today as a message to us. You've got to be taught to hate and fear. You've got to be taught from year to year. It's got to be drummed in your dear little ear. You've got to be carefully taught. You've got to be taught to be afraid of people whose eyes are oddly made and people whose skin is a different shade. You've got to be carefully taught. Babies aren't born to hate. They're taught to hate, and we have to teach them not to hate.
Thank you. Our next speaker represents a very large Asian community, and not just represents a very large Asian community. Like really, when we have people living in the city of New York representing, 150 countries, coming from 150 different countries and speaking over 80 different languages, you could have people that don't speak English as their first language, and those cannot be disenfranchised. Especially when it comes to acts like this, we need to stand up for those that have no voice. And our next speaker is someone who gives those people the voice they need here in New York City and in Albany. So Assemblymember Bill Colton.
I would like, first of all, to commend Councilman Chaim Deutsch and Councilmember Margaret Chin and colleagues Mark Traeger and Andrew Gonatas and Peter Koo. Because having this unity event is so very important. I represent a neighborhood which has long been a neighborhood of immigrants, where over the years people have come from all over the world, and they've lived in Bensonhurst and Gravesend and Dyker Heights. And we now have a large Asian population. And it is so important that everyone understand that we must bring about love and peace and respect for each other. I have attended events that deal with the Lunar New Year. I've attended events dealing with the January 1st New Year. I've attended events where Italian clubs have sworn in their officers, and Chinese organizations have sworn in their officers, and Russian organizations, particularly the Holocaust groups, have sworn in their officers and celebrated together. That is what we need to promote. As Councilmember Margaret Chin said, let there be no doubt about it. This is an act of terrorism. This is an act of racism, of a crime against people. And it must be treated as such. Although the action that was done is insane, we cannot let the person who perpetuated this act, this terrible act, this horrendous act, hide behind that. When somebody kills other people, and here 3 people were killed, they are responsible for their actions, and we call upon the district attorney to enforce the law fully and to make sure that that person is fully prosecuted and is not allowed to roam the streets anymore. That's not because of vengeance. That is because society needs the protection of knowing that we cannot allow people to go around based upon hate and to do things that hurt other people. We live in a very difficult time. There is too much hate. I remember going to events not that far from here on the other end of Emmons Avenue where you have the Holocaust Memorial Park. That was hate that killed millions of people. And one of the reasons why that happened is in those terrible days, people did not speak up enough. Good people, everyone, has to speak up against the evil of hate and to stand up against it and to demand that it stop. And we gather here today to make that statement. It doesn't make any difference who is the victim of the hate. It doesn't make any difference whether they are of a particular race or color or shade or group. They are victims of hate, and we must support them. And we must offer our support and our love and appreciation and help for the families of those victims, because they are part of us. And if we fail to speak up, just like history taught us back in World War II and before World War II, if we fail to speak up, others are going to be the victim of hate. And we still see that hate rearing its ugly head today in different forms, in different names, against different groups. But hate spreads. It doesn't contain itself to one target. It spreads throughout an entire society. And so we are not going to allow that to happen. We are never going to forget the lessons of the past, and we are never going to allow the lessons of the past to go unheeded. We need to speak up. We need to make sure that that person who committed this terrible crime, a crime of hate, a hate crime, is fully prosecuted, and that society as a whole speaks up and fights against the message that hate brings. So we are united. I've spoken up here, and as Councilman Traeger said, I spoke up in Bensonhurst when hate reared its ugly head on 86th Street in my district. And it rears its ugly head again and again all over the city, all over the country. And people of goodwill must constantly speak up against it, must constantly make it clear that we are united and that we will not tolerate it. So I want to thank my colleagues for being here. I want to thank the press. I want to thank the community for dealing with this as it should deal with it. An evil example of hate that is going to be fought against, that is going to be stopped. Because if we don't stop it, we're all going to become victims of it. I'm here together with Nancy Tong, my district leader, and she is the first Asian American elected official in all of Brooklyn. She has been with me at Holocaust rallies. She's been with me at rallies of hate against other people. We have people that have been assaulted because they are of a particular religion, and whether it be Muslim or Catholic or Jewish, any example of hate must be spoken up against, and we must support the people who are victims of that. And that's what we're going to continue doing. And thank you, Councilman Deutsch, for bringing this event about so that we have an opportunity to voice our support for the family and our support for freedom from hate and freedom from terror, which was seen just a short time ago right behind where we stand. So thank you very much, and we are going to continue fighting.
Thank you, Assembly Member. So I just want to mention that I was told that the defendants had a friend who said that when he spoke to him after not speaking to him for a while, that he wasn't rational, he wasn't speaking himself. We cannot blame this on mental health when someone comes inside and slaughters 3 individuals. But we need to make sure as New Yorkers that when you speak to someone or you see something that is out of the ordinary, that doesn't seem normal, to say something. No one deserves to die because he wasn't someone that knew something, didn't say something. And you know, it's very important that here in New York City we bring in resources that we need in all communities. And if you see something, if you detect something, say something. Every district has a representative, an elected representative in the city council. You have a state representative. You have in the assembly, in the Congress. Say something to someone of authority and then let it be handled. At this time, I would like to call up a representative from District Attorney Eric Gonzalez, James Lynn.
Thank you, Councilman. District Attorney Gonzalez regrets that he could not be here today, but he sent myself and 4 other of my colleagues to be here to stand in unity with the community against violence and against hatred. We want to, of course, DA Gonzalez and the entire office and all of us here want to convey our deepest sympathies and condolences to the family, friends, and colleagues of the 3 victims. And we want to assure you, the District Attorney's Office, DA Gonzalez wants to assure you that these crimes are being investigated as hate crimes. Diversity is a strength of this city, of Sheepshead Bay, of this borough. And we stand here united, supporting diversity and also standing against violence and hatred. The District Attorney's Office is going to be working together with the Police Department to investigate and prosecute this case to as best as we can. And we just want to know that the citizens of this borough, of Sheepshead Bay, they shouldn't only just feel safe, they should be safe. And we will dedicate ourselves to that goal. And again, I thank the councilman for holding this event.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Kevin Elkins, representing Congressman Max Rose.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you. Unfortunately, the Congressman could not be here. He had to attend a funeral, but he sends his regards and his condolences to the family and wanted me to speak to the fact, as many others have already spoken to, that this act of hatred and violence in the community will not be tolerated. This is a community full of hardworking people, a diverse community that deserves to feel safe and have no fears or concerns whether they're going to work, as the councilman said, or to serve our community and city and keep us safe. From DC, we have seen nonstop levels of hateful remarks from people who don't feel no need to hide their true feelings anymore. And whenever someone is speaking up and demonstrating a disregard for someone based on who they are, where they're from, what they look like, it is incumbent upon all of us, and the congressman will always be the first one to stand up, along with the elected officials here and members of the community, to condemn that hatred, to confront it, to challenge it, because silence will only breed more violence. Silence will only breed more hatred. We just celebrated Martin Luther King Day this weekend, and he famously said, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that." And we are that light. The community is that light to challenge any sort of racism, any sort of violence, any sort of hatred in someone's heart who would viciously murder people because of who they are. And the congressman has already reached out to the councilman's office. We're working seamlessly to assist in any way, shape, or form that we can. We are here. The congressman's fully aware of this issue, and will be here for the community from now until this tragic matter is put behind us. And we will always remember these victims. And again, I thank you, the councilman, and all those elected officials gathered here today to commemorate these victims and say this will never happen again in our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just want to ask New Yorkers that to come out here in Sheepshead Bay and support Seaport Buffet. Support them. Support the community by coming out and patronizing the business and coming out here and have celebrations at this restaurant. At this time, I'd like to call up Nancy Tung, the 47th Assembly District.
First, I want to thank everyone that are here. You know, it shows that we are united, and this is New York. We all should be united, regardless of what your ethnic group is. And this is a hate crime. We cannot say if he's insane and don't prosecute. So you did murder 3 lives, and when he is able to, I want him to be prosecuted to the greatest extent. And as we were saying before, education, which is very important. We must educate that there should never be hate. So we should talk and let everyone knows hate is not in New York. Everybody is equal, no matter where you're from. So I hoped that there will be educations teaching everyone to get together and treat us, everyone, equally. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask Marguerite Urick from Councilmember Jamani Williams' office. Is she here?
Yeah, Margaret. Right over here.
Thank you, Councilman Chaim Deutsch and all involved for putting together this unity rally. A statement from Councilman Jamani Williams. I want to offer my prayers for peace and comfort to the families of the victims who lost their lives in this act of senseless violence at the Seaport buffet here on Emmons Avenue. This was a targeted attack rooted in hatred and a perverse desire to cause suffering, both for individuals and an entire community. I stand with the Asian community in this time of grief and with all of those affected by this tragedy. Hate is not neat, and to attack one community of people is to attack all historically marginalized people. It is imperative, then, that we stand united in opposition to bigotry, and I am grateful that so many have spoken out to condemn this attack and support those most affected. All of good conscience must speak out against and continue to fight back against all forms of hatred and violence in its name. Thank you. Personally, as a resident of this community and on behalf of this community, I would like to say, please, let's come to support the Seaport Buffet. This is a beautiful place, Emmons Avenue, where we come here away from it all, away from our hard work. We come here to get a bite to eat, to enjoy the water, take a stroll. This is who we are. We bring our families here, and we will continue to do that. That's who we are here in Brooklyn. And thank you again, Councilman Chaim Deutsch and all involved.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Mike DeSilis from Assemblymember Matilda Francis' office.
On behalf of Assemblymember Frontis, who couldn't be here with us today, I'd like to thank the councilman for assembling a group of people, both the community and the representatives of this area. She wishes to mention the fact that hate, nobody's born to hate. It's through teaching. But it's through the connections and the conversations that we are having as New Yorkers that we can start to embrace empathy and embrace love, whether or not you are new to these shores or whether or not you've been here for generations. It's the assembly that we see today of people who just want to live, want to provide for their family, want to exist in a community, a very diverse community. Hate has no room in New York. We have to have the conversations that continue and not just be reactive but proactive in order to prevent these types of incidences from happening, to ensure that we are teaching love and teaching empathy and demonstrating that in our communities. We have been doing this. We need to continue doing this in order to prevent this tragedy. The Assembly member wishes to extend her deepest and sincere condolences to the families of those that were lost, and to know that this is something that we can prevent, something that we can have conversations on, so that we don't have to be here today in an assembly like we are today, mourning the loss of more people to hatred, but that we continue to assemble in peace, in love, and in empathy. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a representative from Councilmember Justin Brennan's office.